Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today, my guest is Philip Sessions from South Carolina, right?
That's
So,
right.
so how are you doing today, Philip?
Oh, I'm excellent. How about you, Mark?
I'm doing great. It's an awesome day. So Philip, we just kind of recently met. Just kind of the universe kind of crossed our paths. So what are you doing, and where do you live at in South Carolina, and what do you do?
Yeah, I live in the Greenville, South Carolina area, and full time I do logistics automation for BMW manufacturing. Essentially, I program robots to deliver parts to the line automatically
Oh,
by those
wow.
robots. But on the side, what I'm building up right now is my speaking coaching business. So essentially, I help people get ready for the stage. I don't necessarily
Okay.
get them on the stage. That's coming down the road as I build
Right.
up those connections, but I help them with that speech prep. So for speaking on stage or presenting in front of an audience of any size.
Awesome. So first, I got to ask you. So how did you get your BMW job?
I was actually a contractor for them
Oh,
back in 2017. I stumbled into a job where I was programming what we call control systems. Essentially, it's the automation behind the scenes of the cars being built. So the
okay.
systems that do that, just kind of like roller coaster rides, there's a system that says like, when you should like lift the roller coaster itself up. I guess that's what it's called, the cart,
Okay.
and then when to put on the brakes and all of that stuff, and it's
Wow.
monitoring that. That's the same thing when it comes to building a car, or essentially the same thing. You have
Okay.
inputs and
Cool.
outputs, and you've got robots and pieces of metal that you
Wow.
put together. You're painting stuff, and so I was with a contractor. And while there, I got approached by some of the BMW employees that, hey, would you be interested in the job? And it took about 2 years because they had a hiring freeze. And then I said,
Oh.
I'm not doing night shift. And then another position came up and I applied for it and I got in because they're like, well, we already interviewed you. You're pretty much a
Yeah.
shoo in, but we got to
Exactly.
go through it formally. And so
Okay.
I've been there since 2019. So right
Wow.
before
Nice.
COVID happened.
Very nice. So, do you drive a Beamer?
I do. I drive an X3. Well, not right now. I
Ah.
got in a little bit of an accident. I hit
Oh.
somebody. So
Oh. That's
I
too
don't
bad.
have one right now. I'm fine. The car was dented pretty good in the front.
Hmm.
Hit a nice ball hitch on
Oh,
somebody's
that would
bumper.
yeah.
Yeah,
That would
they
do
were
some
fine.
damage.
Yeah, they were fine. Their truck was fine, but not the poor BMW.
No, I love
Unfortunately, they're
being.
made well, just not like tanks.
Yeah, and that would be definitely tough for any car to handle on that.
Yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. Oh yeah.
oh yeah, no, I like BMWs too. So that is so cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to get another one like that, or are you just getting this one repaired, or what is
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in the lease program there. Being an employee, I'm a part of the lease program, but I'm waiting for it
nice?
to get repaired. So it's been about 2 weeks. So hopefully here
Okay,
soon it'll be repaired and I'll be back in my X3. But for now, I'm
awesome.
driving a 2003 1500 Dodge Ram.
That's got to be a little different.
Yeah, I go
Just a
from a
little.
2023 X3 to 2003. Yeah, it's like going back
Oh,
20
and it
years,
was a brand new
literally.
car too, a brand new.
Yep.
Oh, that's the
Yep.
way it usually goes too. So,
Yep. Oh yeah.
oh, that's too bad. I hope it's fast getting you back into your Beamer. So,
Oh, it will.
okay,
They'll
so
get it back to me soon enough.
awesome. So, okay, so what took you from which with the doing that at the BMW to what you're doing now with the speaking and everything like that?
Yeah, that really goes back to 2017 when I
Okay,
started getting into going to conferences and stuff. Probably 2010, 2012, somewhere in there.
right.
I started reading self-development books and really was just getting in that space and learning. And then finally 2017 was my first ever conference to invest into, which was GrowthCon 2. And that's where
Okay,
I met Andy Frisell and Ed Milet and kind of started
nice.
following them around
Right.
and kind of jumping forward here. I think 2018 went to GrowthCon 3, met somebody there that was in this group called Arate Syndicate, which
Okay.
is what Andy and Ed started.
Oh,
And so
sure.
whenever
Okay.
they open up applications, I jumped into that. And that
Okay.
was, I think, maybe early 2019. And then I ended up leaving in 2020. But through all of that was where I started my self development journey. And in 2021, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I'd already been kind of speaking on the side and doing some of that stuff, had a podcast,
Right.
all those good
Right.
things,
Right.
and actually wrote a book in 2021, early 2021. But I wanted to be able to do more that because I was doing fitness coaching and I
Okay.
realized that's
Okay.
not what I want to do. But I was like, okay,
Okay.
maybe leadership, maybe this. And there
Sure.
was an opportunity at BMW to get in the leadership and professional
Ah.
development space
Sure.
in their training department.
Okay.
Well, I was already kind of having imposter syndrome with leadership because I hadn't had the quote unquote title of a leader,
I
although
can
I've
relate to
led a
that.
lot of people
Right.
involuntarily and everything. But I got stuck, if you will, with a curriculum to build out presentation skills. And that's when the light bulb went off.
Oh,
If this
wow.
Fortune 100 company called BMW wants help with presentation skills for their professionals, I bet I can help out some people too. And so that's where I
Right.
really got into starting looking into actually helping people out with that. And I found like
Nice.
a huge joy in that. I've helped a lot of people
Okay.
over these past 2 years essentially with all of that and everything. And I've actually gotten some people where I prepped them for those stages, which has been really cool, and seen several of them as well be
Okay.
on that stage and be there with them, which is just a really cool thing to see
It's
that
got to
I
be,
helped them
yeah.
get that, as well as helping a few startups win $250,000 each, which was really
Whoa.
cool also. Yeah,
That
so
is
it's
very cool.
yeah, been a lot of really
That's so
cool
awesome.
different dynamics and everything, but really going in and helping them create that strategy and knowing where they're trying to go, and then just crafting that message a little bit for them, giving those tweaks so they can really create the impact that they're looking for or get the investment like they're looking for, like those
Right.
startups.
Wow. So how did you get over your imposter syndrome? I mean, how does somebody that's dealing with that, which I know that
Mhm.
syndrome quite well, how do you get over that?
I I just kept telling myself, I'm just going to do this. Like, I'll figure it
Take
out one of
action.
these days.
Yeah.
And just kept putting myself more and more in front of people and just pushing myself to do that because I was really just a shy kid growing up. And that really, and we may go into this a little bit more, but
Okay.
just an overview was that because of that shyness and always being overlooked, I wanted to do something different.
Right.
And that's really where that speaking drive came in. And it took many years to do that,
I
but
can
really
understand
just
that.
overcoming the fact that I was overlooked was really
Yeah.
what helped me move past that imposter syndrome. And I still have it from time to time, but I just had to realize that if I have that imposter syndrome, that means that I care. And that's something that
True.
I need to go and do because I'm
Right.
scared of it for some reason. And that means that's what's in my way right now. And so if I want to get to that next step, I have to go through that. I can't go around it.
Awesome. No, I think that is so cool. I mean, that's what people deal with all the time, and but a lot of times, most of the time, they don't go past that. And I think that's very inspirational. We talked
Yeah.
earlier, and going from a shy kid, I mean, to that, I mean, that had to be the very first. When's the first time you spoke on stage?
Oh, man, I guess probably 2011, 2012.
Okay,
I was at church, so I was preaching in front of about 100 to 120 people in the
that's
congregation.
quite a few
That's probably
people.
probably one of my first times. And then as far, throughout school, we'd have presentations and stuff and have to do
Sure.
that. But it'd
Right.
usually be group presentations, so it wasn't necessarily me. And
Yeah.
those were always a little bit more nerve wracking. I mean, even the one at
Yeah.
church, that seems to be always the most nerve wracking for me because those are the people that personally know me really
That
well
does.
versus
Yeah.
grade
Yeah.
school or going and speaking in front of a random audience that I don't really
Yeah.
know much about. Those
Yeah.
are less nerve wracking for me. So I'd say probably about 2011, 2012, something like that was
Okay.
the first time I really did it.
Okay. Very cool. So, okay. So, where do you want to take what you're doing right now? Where do you want to take this?
So where I want to take this really is not only doing the speaking coaching, but eventually I want to branch out into business coaching as well. And I
Okay.
give the example because this is, I guess, technically my second, well, probably third. I started a landscaping company a long time ago,
Okay.
but this is really my third business. So I wouldn't call myself a great business owner, and therefore I'd feel like a life coach at 20 if I
Uh
started
huh.
being a business coach right now. But eventually I do want to get into business coaching because when I do this speech prep and when I go into businesses and help them out with their communication and that communication structure for their leadership team, I find that we do talk about business some. And I'm fine with
Okay.
talking about it some because I know that's not their key thing they're looking for me from. But it's
Right.
nice because I can blend in a little bit of that business so they can understand more of that because it is an important part when it comes to your communication is knowing how that goes back to impact the business. So the more
Yes.
as you present, if you can bring in KPIs and other points about, hey, this is what we're talking about here. We need to do this so we can get here. We
Right.
have this
Right.
target out here. So if you can bring in business concepts within your presentation, it helps out a ton. So knowing and understanding business helps out, especially
Yes.
with those more internal presentations versus on big business conference stage.
Right. No, that's true. So that's awesome. So I know you just got back from a conference or in Dallas. So what was that about then?
Yeah, yeah. So it was a Real Business Owners. So they've got an amazing podcast called Real Business Owners, and
Okay.
they've got
Cool.
their company is actually Easier Accounting, but they started that podcast just to be able to give out advice about real business. So
Okay.
ironic, we kept joking about, oh yeah, I'm a real business owner, not just a business owner,
I love
and
that.
everything. But that event was all about you, the person. I mean, of course,
Okay.
business was thrown in there, but they're like, if you can fix yourself, if you can fix your relationships, whether you're married or just in a boyfriend girlfriend relationship,
Right.
wherever you're at, if you fix those relationships, the success will come, the money will come, but not until
True.
you fix those relationships. And yes, there are
Interesting.
people that have been wildly successful in a monetary perspective that have terrible relationships, but at
Right. Right.
some point that relationship deteriorates that business. And for most people, it ends
Interesting.
up being in divorce, or they can't grow their business more because of the strain at home. And so that's what we talked a lot about, was just
Very
the
interesting.
relationship. Yeah. So even though it
Wow.
was like a business conference, we talked a lot more about relationships, and not just like the husband wife relationship, but also
Just
the
yeah. The
relationship you make with other business owners, and how you need to be open with each other and have those conversations, and help each other out and everything.
so awesome because you really don't think about that aspect.
No.
It's you just know it's part of the everyday, but to really and I can definitely see that. I mean, everything
Yeah.
goes into so very very interesting.
Yeah.
So, are you ever going to have? Would you ever want to have a conference like that yourself, or maybe you have had?
So I did take a stab at one last year, August, so August
Okay,
2022,
okay,
and I had an incredible turnout. I mean, I had a whole
awesome.
10 people there, and 5 of them were speakers, so it was amazing.
Ah, but that's awesome though, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it was still great.
Yeah,
Everybody, I had a good time. We kind of changed it up, so it wasn't necessarily like a normal business conference at the end of it, because we were just kind of talking with each other. But so everybody was super gracious to me, because we did not get hardly anybody there. But I will
but
have a
still.
conference in the future and everything for sure. But I've learned from that. There was
Oh
huge
yeah.
stuff that I learned from that, which I can go into if you would like me to, about what I've done. So when I do announce that next conference, that I'll have more than just 10 people show up.
No, awesome. Yeah, if you would want to go into what you learned, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So this is concept I've heard people call like 5 Mile famous and stuff, and I'm actually gonna end up creating some kind of content out of this called like local influencer. And so
Okay.
essentially what I have started to do, really starting in January of this year. So we're only about 9 months into the year as we're recording this.
Right.
But what I've done is I started going to local networking events. I started hosting local coffee events, coffee networking events.
I like
I
that.
started doing lunch and learns, workshops, and I
Very
started just
nice.
networking with people local to me. And so I spent about 3 months trying to market, and I really didn't market too well. So there's that as well. But trying
Uh,
to market this, and I had a great online network, a great online presence, or at least I
okay.
thought I did. It's definitely
Right.
gotten better, but I'm like, oh man, I've got this online network. They like me a lot. I know they're going to come out and support me. Nope, didn't support me. And my local network was trash. And so I had
Wow.
10 people come in August. I can put together a workshop or whatever I want,
Right.
and I can, at a minimum, with only 2 weeks, like, hey, I'm going to do this and just talk to a few people. A minimum, I'll get 10 people. So for three
Okay.
months of marketing, down to
All
two
that.
weeks of marketing, I get
Right.
10 people. But typically, I get 30 to 40 people at my events, because I
Okay.
started doing all these local events and becoming that
I like that idea.
local influencer. And
Yeah.
so doing the coffee networking events, workshops, lunch and learns, just networking, getting coffee on a one-to-one basis, creating that local influence
Yep.
has what helped me get my local network stronger. So when I do go create that conference, so now I guess I need to just go ahead and create it, so I can say, because I did these steps, I was actually able to create a good sized conference, instead of, hopefully it did. I guess at this point it's just a theory that it will happen. But
That's
that's what I've done to help
that's.
change that, and I
I
like
like that.
smaller events anyway, so that's kind of
Me
why I
too.
haven't done a conference necessarily.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could 2 weeks of marketing, I have 30 or 40 people show up. I mean, now it's a
Yeah,
free
I mean,
event, so it's a litlittle bit different than a paid event, but still, 3
that
months of marketing versus 2
com-
weeks. I'll take the 2
yeah.
weeks all day long.
Me too. Because
Yeah.
if you've never ever done an event, there's so much more that goes on behind to get to the day
Yeah.
of. Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yes. Oh,
So
yeah.
and I like your idea doing the local. I mean, no
Mhm.
like trust. You know, where people get to know you and in word of mouth, and I think that's an awesome idea. I think that
Yeah,
is very awesome.
exactly, and I'll piggyback on that. So I met a couple people that I mean, we have weekly conversations. We're talking
Okay,
pretty much week after week after week,
cool.
and we've built up great friendships. So when we met in person, it was just different. Like it was still good. It wasn't like it was awkward or something. It
But
was
just kind of
better because we met in person. And so now we have an even stronger bond after having met in person.
awesome.
And so you doing this local stuff is so important for you because you can build that strong bond and
Yep, I like
people
that.
will come and support you because they actually know you. Even though they
Right.
know you on social media, they can physically know
Yeah.
you now.
There's definitely a
And
difference. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So build that local influence for sure.
That is so cool. I gotta implement that too. That is so awesome. So
There you go. It's easy. It's easy. Happy
yeah.
to help out.
I mean that is okay. And I heard you say you wrote a book. You've written a book. So what book did you write?
Yeah, it's right over here on the shelf. Mindset over motivation. So it's available on Amazon. You may have
Okay.
to actually put my name in there as well, Philip Sessions. But Mindset over motivation. Essentially, this was in my transition between the fitness coaching and public speaking coaching. So
Okay.
there's a lot more fitness analogies in there,
In there.
but
Okay.
mindset really it applies a lot to fitness, but
Right.
applies really any area of life. So it can help you in any area, but it's all about mindset and how at the end of
Very
the day
important.
you have to make up your mind
You do.
to go do something because you're not going to be motivated.
No,
And when
you're
I
not.
first got
You have to make the decision over and over and over again. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So
When I first got started in entrepreneurship, I was like, "Oh man, I'm just not motivated today. Okay, I'm not going to make the calls. I'm just not motivated today. Oh, I'm just not
yeah.
going to go post on social media." And then I
Yep.
finally have just made it in my mind, I've got to do this. If I do not do these steps every single day, and obviously within reason, if I get sick or something, I
Right.
may not
Right.
do it.
Right.
But if
Yeah.
I don't do these every single day and if I'm not consistent, people won't care about me. People won't want to
They
do
won't.
business with me. And that's
Yep.
where I really think that magical third year in business comes into play because people want to see, are you going to stick around? They want to
True.
know, Mark, are
Yeah.
you going to stick around? Philip, are you going to stick
Right.
around or not?
Exactly.
I'm going to,
Yep.
and it's not like they literally wait 3 years, but everybody
But
I've
just
talked to that's
yeah.
been in business for
Yep.
5 years or they hit that, once they hit that 3 year mark, they're like, it's like something changed. All of a
Yep.
sudden, boom, business turned up. Like year two, things start creeping a little bit. Year three, it's just like somebody open up the gate or they turn the knob up to full blast. And it's like,
Exactly.
what do I
Yeah.
do? And everything
Yeah.
just starts growing. But
Yeah.
it's that consistent
It
effort and
is.
action that you have to have.
You do.
So that's
That's
why I wrote
become
the book Mindset Over Motivation because it's all about mindset, not motivation.
yeah, and it is. It's got to be mindset. So okay, you just one day decided I'm going to write a book, or how did you learn how to write a book?
So I'm in a part of Apex, which
Okay.
it's a mastermind by Ryan
Okay.
Stewman, and so
Okay.
part of what he calls build your machine is doing the social media content, and one of those steps is actually writing a book.
Okay.
And so I took on that effort within that
Awesome.
build your machine to write my book, and now I need to write another book because that doesn't quite fit in with the current machine, if you will,
Right.
which is
Right.
public speaking coaching. That machine is you're trying to build your credibility in the market so people can recognize you and want to work with you based on your business. And so I
True.
need to write another book for that. But that's essentially where that inspiration came from. Also, just wanting to be different, wanting to put myself
Yes. Yep.
not above necessarily, but just to prove that I could do it to myself,
And I know
which
what you
goes
mean
back to what we
there.
talked about at the beginning. I didn't want to be overlooked anymore. So what
Yep.
things could
Yep.
differentiate me from other people? And writing a
Yes.
book is one of those. When people hear I have a book or I have a podcast, like, oh wow, that's cool. Like most people don't know that, and
no,
most people don't do it. So you
that's
are
true. They
different from
don't.
that.
They have the
Yeah,
best of intentions, but they don't ever go any further than that. So how
yeah.
long did it take you to write a book?
Once I finally got started, it took about 3 months.
Well, that's
So
not too
I
bad
had
then.
started at the beginning of the year, like, "I'm gonna write it, I'm gonna write it, gonna write it," and then about March, I think, was when I was like, "All right, I got to get going on it. I got to get it finished. Or I had some stuff, but I hadn't hardly done much to it. And
Hmm.
June was when I released it of 2021.
Wow. So
So
you self-publish, or how did you do
yeah,
it?
yeah,
Okay.
self-published
Okay.
through
Okay.
KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
Amazon's
Yeah.
thing of how you publish on their
Right.
website.
Right. Okay. That is so cool. Okay. So you got another book. Would you want to have more books and just doing the next one? You like writing books?
I did really enjoy the process. I've been
Okay.
on the process of really just acquiring clients right now, so I haven't been too focused on the book side of things. Although
Okay.
some people may say you probably should write it because it definitely is something that's good for getting on stages as well.
Right. Right.
I just haven't put my efforts towards that, but there are definitely several books I want to write. And we mentioned a little bit earlier. Well, we didn't mention about the book, but something I thought about was that 5 Mile Famous coming to mind. Local influencer is something I've thought about writing about, like talking about that and that
There you
process of
go.
how do you
Yeah.
become that local influencer, and then
That would be a
how do
good
you go
book.
about networking. So these would probably be like shorter books, maybe ebooks instead.
Right.
But like,
Right.
how do you go about networking? Interviewing is another good thing that I love to do, and I seem to have a gift at that as well. And so
Right.
talk about how do you start interviewing, and then of course the one about speaking, which I'll go through that, like, and that'll probably have a lot of that local influencer thing in there
See
as
that.
well, and talk about how do you get better at public speaking and how do you start getting on stages and getting known as a speaker.
Okay. So I mean, you speak so well. Did you do like Toastmasters, or how did you learn to speak so well?
A lot of it was just comes down to action and
Just doing it?
repetition.
Okay.
So, podcasts,
Okay.
video content all the time, live videos, being on interviews like this, of course, my own
Okay.
podcast,
Right.
and
Right.
then I did do Toastmasters as well. I
Did you?
did that
Okay.
for
Cool.
about a year and a half, I think, year and a half,
Okay.
2 years, but then just putting myself in opportunities to speak is really where that's helped out a lot, and then I
Awesome.
always dissect speakers. Like, when I was at the event this weekend, I was watching them, and I'm seeing, like,
I
how
can
they're
understand that.
presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my friend
Uh-huh.
that was sitting next to me, she's not a speaking coach, but she's like, because she was sitting next to me, she was like, "I was paying attention to some of the stuff they were doing and everything." And so it's funny just having that influence over her a little
Which is
bit just because
cool.
of being in my presence, which was
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, but that so I dissect speakers and see what they do, see what I like, see how the audience reacts and everything, and pick and choose those things and try and implement them for myself. And just always
Awesome.
having been observant, and I guess with my engineering background,
Yeah,
it
I can
kind of
see
makes me
that.
that way.
Might do
Yeah.
that a little bit. Yeah, I could definitely be an engineer. So okay, you said you have your podcast. What is the name of your podcast?
The podcast is Speaking Sessions, which is the name of the business as
Which
well.
makes
And I got
very
my
much
nice
sense.
little logo over here, right? So it's
Okay.
part of what you're supposed to do when you got on these interviews.
So
Be
okay,
brand.
what got you started in doing a podcast?
One day, a guy told me, I was like, man, I want to do one, want to do one. I had actually this microphone. I had it for about a year. Did
Okay.
nothing with it. I had a little, not a roadcaster, but I can't even think of the name of it. Basically, I'd spent probably about 300 bucks, did nothing, and then finally one day I asked the guy, "How do you start a podcast?" What does he tell me? Just start. I'm like, really,
Yeah, like
really, dude,
anything.
just
Yep.
start. And it's
Yep.
the most annoying thing ever, but it's
it
so
is.
true.
It
It is
is. It's
so
very true.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I started it because of that, and I can't remember when that was. That was probably 2016,
Okay.
maybe 2017 when I started that podcast and everything. But it really just came from a desire just to start
Just do
speaking
it.
and start to have cool conversations with people. And that one was a different podcast called Healthy Living Sessions because I was
With
doing
what you were
fitness
doing, yeah.
coaching at the time
Yeah.
and everything. And so then I switched over to speaking sessions, and that's
I like that.
been around for about a year and a half now.
So what does that come out on a certain day every week, or how often does your podcast drop then?
It does, yeah. Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern, and then
Okay.
Friday 6 a.m. Eastern.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
do a
Cool.
guest episode on Wednesdays, and I do a solo episode on Friday. So that one's
Nice.
typically a little bit uh, more strategic, more tactical, and gives you advice specifically on different topics around speaking and communication.
Very
Versus the
nice.
other one, I'm talking with the guest and getting some of their insight, their
Sure.
expertise, and relating it back to speaking and communication.
Very cool. So, and I like that where they ask you about it, like anything. I have people's like, so what do you need to do to get started with a podcast? And like anything, or the tips. And it's like, well, there's tips, but unless you start, you're never going to know the process because
Yeah.
going doing the reps and going through it are how you learn more than anything. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's like
uh,
telling somebody, hey, yeah, just, you know, how do I get better at basketball? Well, okay, you do this and you
yeah,
position your hand this way and this is how you hold the ball and
yep,
you do your little hook at the end and make sure you hold your hand there. You don't just throw it off to the side or
yeah,
anything, but
yep.
then you never shoot a ball. Well,
No,
how are you going to get better? How are you going to know what to
never.
fix?
Nope.
Yeah, you can learn and learn and learn, but until you start applying, you don't know what to
Yes.
actually fix.
Yeah.
You don't know what
You
to
don't.
actually do. Like, hey, do I
True.
actually need to learn that? Like
Yep.
maybe you're actually really good at marketing or sales,
Yep.
but if all you're doing is learning, you'll never know. But once you
You
start
won't.
doing, then you can go back and learn, okay, when I got in there, I had this rebuttal come up in the sales conversation and
Right.
it locked me up. I didn't know what to do. Okay, let me go back. Let me read up on that. Like, how do I handle this rebuttal? And
Yep.
you can continue to get better and refine that
Yeah. It's
sales conversation.
only way you're
But
going
you
to.
gotta
Yeah.
start.
You
Yeah.
do. Because otherwise, you're not going to know those areas. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like
And that's
anything.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of the hardest things for me when I start working with clients that they want to get into speaking, they want to become a speaker, and so I always push them to start doing video content. Like because we
right.
can get on a conversation like this, and
Yep.
I can start seeing some stuff, and I can start giving you some ideas, and I can make you practice, and I can
Yep.
give you some feedback. But unless you have some videos I can go check on as well when you're not in a one-on-one situation with me where maybe you're a little nervous, you're not
Right.
sure, you don't
Right.
want to be judged kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I always say like, "Hey, I only judge you because you're paying me to judge you."
And that's
But
true. You are.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they should expect that you should judge them. So,
Oh, yeah.
but it
Oh, yeah,
is.
exactly. But that video content will help you get better and get those reps in as well, and you're
Yep.
thinking, "Well, it's a reel's 30 seconds. How is that gonna help me with 30-minute speech?" Well, you do 30 seconds over and over and over and over
Yep.
again, and
Exactly.
you're gonna get better as long as you go back and look at that and try and improve on one thing and one thing at a time. Don't try and improve everything.
Very true.
Focus on
Yes.
improving one thing, and then once you master that, go to the next thing and the next.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you get overwhelmed, a lot of people quit then. And
Yeah.
you don't want to do that. That is for sure. Because, well, overwhelmed, mind confused, mind confused usually doesn't do anything. So, and it is videos or doing lives. The first time we did a live, like on Facebook or Instagram, it's intimidating. Most of them, I didn't have anybody. There was nobody there, but it still was intimidating. But
Yeah.
yeah, you just have to take the action in anything in your life that you want to proceed with. So okay, I have to ask, since this is Dreamcatcher podcast, what was your dream when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, it was probably a sport like baseball or something. I remember baseball
Okay.
pretty distinctly that I wanted to do baseball.
Oh,
But
really?
when I got later into my years, this was actually I took 3 semesters to graduate from college. So I had 3 senior
Oh,
semesters.
okay.
My second senior semester, getting close to finishing up an electrical engineering degree. But
Right.
when I got to college, I found that I really loved fitness. But
Okay.
when I got there at the end of my college career, a thought passed on my mind. It'd be really cool to be a personal trainer. I think I would really enjoy that. And I graduated in 2013.
Okay.
And so I decided, you know what? I'm right here. Why would I waste this degree? Like I'd probably make 60,000 coming out the gate as an engineer,
Right.
20 to 30 as a personal trainer. Like it just makes no sense. I'm almost here to the degree. I'll extend how much I have to do to get a degree
Yep.
in personal training of some sorts by like 2 years. So that's a lot of time wasted, and then I'm going to make nowhere near as much money.
Right.
So I'm just going to
Right.
go ahead and finish this degree. And then it just kind of kept eating on me. And I have a family of entrepreneurs as well.
Okay.
My dad had his own business. My
Nice.
uncles have
Okay.
their own business. My grandpa on one side was a farmer. My grandpa
Okay.
on the other side was the one that started these businesses and everything for my uncles that took on and developed
Right.
their own
Right.
businesses and everything. And so the entrepreneur is in my blood, and I have been reading these self-development books. And
Okay.
then finally, around 2017, when I went to my first conference, was when I realized, you know what? I really want to do this business thing. This business thing is something that I want to do. And
Yep.
so that's when I started with the fitness coaching. And then I found out that fitness coaching, while it was fun, it's not something that I enjoyed to help other people with. And that's where, and I wanted to create
That's
more
important.
impact than just that individual or their family. And
Right,
so that's
right.
where the public speaking coaching came in. But it all started with just having this desire. And I didn't go forward with it. And I
Okay.
hated that. And it ate me
Yeah,
up
I
on the
understand
inside.
that.
And I've always wanted to do something more and be something more. And I told myself no back then. And I finally decided years later that I'm not saying no anymore. I'm going to go get
Cool.
what I want. And I went
Awesome.
into a conference in 2021, and I remember 2019 I went to one as well. And I
Okay.
remember there was a lot of guys that are financially way more successful than me there. And I couldn't really get around these guys. Not that they were rude or anything, but I just wasn't on their level business wise. And
Okay.
so I
Yep.
felt like I
Yep.
couldn't make it to the table. And
Right.
then 2021, when I went to another conference, and it was a lot of the same guys, and there were some different guys as well. Again, I'm not at their table, but now I feel like I can't get invited to their table, and they're not going to want me there. And then I
Hmm.
realized, you know what? I've got to build my own table. When
True.
I build my
Very
own
true.
table,
Yep.
then I'll get invited to theirs because they're going to see that I'm willing to build my own table, and
Yep.
I've got all my own friends, and they're probably going to want to come to my table as well.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I started to build my own table, and that's
Awesome.
where a lot of this dream started happening. And I just
Love
keep
it.
continuing to dream, continue to build that table, and bring
Cool.
the people around that I want to bring around instead of trying to get to somebody else's table and eating
Yes.
the scraps off of theirs.
That is so cool, Philip. I love that. That is so cool, and it's so true too. So, yeah, they'll want to definitely be at your table then. So, in that
Yeah.
situation, so okay, so looking down 5, 10 years, what would you see? What would you like to have happen by 5 or 10 years from now?
5 or 10 years, of course, being out of the 9 to 5, being one of those, but then
Sure.
also having 3 to 5 coaches underneath me. And
Okay.
we've helped about 10,000 people out with their speeches
Wow.
and within the teams as well to help with that communication. Because
Nice.
believe it or not, a lack of communication costs over $1 trillion a year for corporations in the United
Wow.
States.
That's
It's
amazing.
a $1 trillion loss industry every single year because of poor communication. And that's not just you and I talking right here. That's an email. That's
That's
having
amazing.
so many people in a meeting, and then you've got to have a meeting about the meeting about the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's all
Exactly.
sorts of things that a
Yep.
loss of communication or a lack of communication end up costing companies so much more. And I
Wow.
really want to go in and help small businesses out because I feel like those small businesses, especially ones that
Yep.
don't have a corporate background, that don't have necessarily that 4-year education where they do see that structure and get
Right.
that structure, that they don't understand that structure, how to communicate properly, especially those that are contractors. I mean, they're rough and gruff. And I've been in the oil and gas industry. You're
Oh,
out
so
there in
you
the
would
field,
know. Yeah.
and that's some of the stuff you would never say in the office. And so how do you
Yeah.
take that guy that's been in the field that now you're trying to make a leader and get him to where he can communicate properly and not lose the job or not lose an employee? And now you're spending, well, I think it's like 1.5 to 2 times the salary to train up a new employee versus
Yeah.
keeping an old one.
Right.
So now
Right.
all of that monetary loss for the company and everything. So I really want to go in and help that out. And so that's why I see
Oh,
myself with three
cool.
to five coaches underneath me, where we've helped out about 10,000 individuals,
Awesome.
including businesses and their teams.
I look forward to it, and I think you're going to blow that number away. I think you're going to have more than that by a long ways. So, I just you're on, like I said before we started this, that you're on fire. I can just see that you're going to be really, maybe in 2 years or even half that time. You're going to be doing that. Does your wife help with you on this, or
She does not. I'm trying to get her on board with some of it, but it's not her desire. So
okay?
we'll let her be where she wants to be. Would love to have her on board, but it's fine that she's not. I knew
Sure.
going into this marriage that that wasn't her
Right, not going to
dream.
be.
So
Yeah.
yeah, she's not at this point.
Okay. No. So do you have, social media, YouTubes, or how can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on basically every social media platform. You can find my video content, a lot of it on YouTube at Philip Sessions, Philip with one
Okay.
L, Facebook, The Real Philip Sessions. And
Okay.
then you can go to my website. I mean, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. I try not to give every single one out, but if you go to my website, speakingsessions.com, you'll be able to find the podcast as well as all the social media links.
Very cool. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I'm the middle child, so I'm that weird middle child, I guess. I've got an
That's all
older
right.
sister
I
and a
mean,
younger brother.
so have you inspired them to do this, or maybe are they doing things similar to this?
My brother's trying to figure it out right now. I think I'm a big
Okay.
influence and inspiration on him. He's
Cool.
still trying to figure things out. So he was probably me when I was in my early 20s, and he's still in
Okay.
his 20s, but he's in the
Yeah,
later
it's got
20s
time.
now. But he's still trying to figure things out. And my sister, I think she's inspired by some of the stuff, but she doesn't have the desire to move forward and do anything like I do.
Yeah. We have to have our own path, that's for sure. So, but
Exactly.
that is very
Exactly.
cool. So, Philip, so what else would you like the guests today on the for the podcast um, like to know about what you're doing?
Whew, man, that's a good question. I'm not used to, like, I guess if you will, just pitching myself like that on a
It's
podcast
cool.
or anything. I love just adding value and everything. But if you're looking for help with speaking, I mean, I've got a couple different ways you can get that help. We can do just a one-on-one conversation to give you some strategy and some ideas of what your story maybe could be. We can also go into one-on-one coaching where I usually do 90-day contract and then
Really?
month to month
Okay.
after that, where we go through and I help you out with actually coming up with your your signature talk. I'm
Okay.
trying to change that because I was saying keynote, but as I was doing some research, I realized that most people say keynote as in the last speech, but a keynote speech actually is the setting tone of a meeting or a
Right.
conference. So when we think of
Interesting.
ketone, most people in the industry think of that final speech. That's not it. So
Interesting. I did
your
not know that. Okay.
signature speech is what I'm trying to say. So that's why there was that hesitation there. But your signature talk and everything, and how you can bring out your story to be able to start creating impact and influence outside of your
Nice.
business. And then I also do group coaching. So I'm starting another one on September 23rd on a
Okay.
Saturday. So I just started one, and it's 6 weeks, and we essentially go through the first 5 weeks of exactly how I step through when I get ready to prepare for a speech and how I go
Okay.
about preparing for that and making sure
Awesome.
that I'm speaking to that audience and getting the
Right.
results for them, but also for myself on that speech. And then you get to actually practice it in front of a group of people, and that's
Very,
all based online.
very, very good. That is so good. So I love that. That's definitely the way to do it. So, and you have a challenge or something going on now too?
So that's you're probably. Oh yeah, yeah. So I have a live challenge going on right now for the month of September, and I'm probably gonna come up with other ones. But
Okay.
basically, for 2 minutes, I have all the people that want to do it with me go live every single day the month of September, so they can get those reps in and really practice getting comfortable with
Nice.
speaking on camera. And I've
Very,
already
very
had
nice.
somebody. They were 6 days in. They're like, "Wow, I'm already more comfortable." So it
Look
doesn't
at that.
take years to get comfortable. I mean, six
It doesn't.
days and you can get
Yeah,
more comfortable speaking, but you just have to start speaking now.
you do. You just have to start doing it.
Yeah.
So that is so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I noticed that. So, so what other things do you like to do? I mean, what other any areas would you like to expand into?
I mentioned about the business coaching. I mean, right
Right.
now I'm just kind of in this phase where it's all about family and all about getting the
Sure.
business up and running. I mean, down the road, once I get the business going a little bit more and I can get out of the 9 to 5, definitely want to do more hikes and stuff with my daughter and
Awesome.
everything. But she's
Yeah.
also not 2 yet, so it's also a little
Oh,
difficult
wait. Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
her out for a while. So I
Yeah.
guess it's kind of a good time that I can grow the business and everything. And then going on date nights with my wife and everything. That's something that I
It's
learned from the
important.
conference that I want to go back and implement more. I
Yeah.
haven't been great about doing that with her.
Yeah, that's all the stuff.
Uh,
That's why I think conferences are so good because you learn stuff like that. You know,
yeah,
when you're in
exactly.
proximity to other people that are kind of on the same journey. I think that's very important. Um,
Exactly.
so Philip, I'll put there all the contact information in the show notes. If there's nothing else, unless you want to tell the audience some more things, I'll probably just end the podcast right there. Maybe come back for a follow up session sometime or a follow up podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to come back and talk some
Okay,
more.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
That would
this
be
was great. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't think I have necessarily anything unless we went on for another 3 hours.
Well, you never. If you want to talk that long, I had a guy the other day that went 5 hours,
Ooh,
and a
man.
long time. Yes,
Yeah.
from Spain, and
Wow.
awesome guy. But 5 hours is a long time, very
That
long
is a
time.
long time, man.
Yes. So,
Woo.
but anyway, I look forward to you coming back. Maybe if I would fit in, being on your podcast would be awesome too. I would love to be a guest. But I will end it there, and look forward to, like I said, coming back to the podcast, the Dream Catcher podcast. And I want to thank you for being the guest today. And we'll let you go and take care. And thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.